Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being with us now. This is a talk that's part of the MCBW, or Munich Creative Business Week. The topic is what you can see here on the screen: enhancing mobility experiences through mixed reality. It's a topic that I believe fits great to this year's theme of the MCBW, which is moving horizons. So in our title, you have mobility and movement, as well as mixed reality, which is definitely a new frontier, MR, VR, AR, a new horizon. And I'm also personally quite excited about this topic. I'm part of the EF jury when it comes to judging the AR, MR, and gaming category. And I can tell you that it's an area where there's lots of exciting things happening. And I'm very happy and also excited to be sharing some of the insights that our team has gathered when we got concerned about this topic. First, 2-3 sentences about the logistics. It's actually not one talk. We are happy that we have 2 talks to share with you today. Each talk will be around 15 minutes, followed by a 10-minute Q&A session. There is a Q&A function in this Zoom webinar. Please use it. You can also, during the talk, already post your questions in this section. And this talk is hosted by Star. Star is a company that deals with product creation in many areas, also in the automotive mobility industry. We are a team of roughly 500 people and 75 designers in 13 locations. I'm also happy that we have participants from Star from multiple locations in this webinar today. And if you would summarize Star in one sentence, then it would be this one. We are a team of product creators all the way from the inception, from the very beginning, when we set the strategy of a certain project or a product idea, all the way to implementation. We have a special focus on the automotive and mobility industry. Roughly 40% of our projects are in this realm. And also here, we provide an end-to-end service. We are concerned with the creation of entire in-car HMIs, infotainment stacks, but also AI companions, which are either in the car or maybe also on your mobile device, voice assistants, but also the backend or solutions that are not consumer facing is part of the services we deliver: fleet management, over-the-air updates, you name it. And with that, that's it about Star in this webinar. Let's dive right into the topic. And first, I would like to introduce you to our speakers. We have Jose, who joins me here in Munich, where also I'm based. We have Richard, who joins us from Star Tokyo. And I'm very excited to also have Lucas with us today, who will be the speaker when it comes to our second talk. He's the CEO of NXRT based in Vienna. And then myself, Manuel. I will be moderating the session. I will also keep a look at the clock to make sure you guys stay on time and that we have enough time for the Q&A. So 4 people, 3 presenters, and also 2 time zones. Thank you, Richard, for joining us. It's just after midnight in Tokyo, so thank you for being with us. The 2 talks are summarized here on this page. We start with Jose and Richard, and then later we have Lucas talking about mixed reality and also making test drives a reality in this space. Yeah, I'm really excited about these 2 areas. And with that, I can hand over to our first 2 presenters, Jose and Richard.
Thank you very much. Let me share my screen.
All right. Thank you, Manuel. So happy to be here. And once again, thank you everyone for joining this session. I want to start by sharing my experience through this picture here. It's a picture of a guy driving while looking at Google Maps, and he does not notice the red light in front of him. My experience was very similar. I was once driving for the first time in Fukuoka, Japan. I was on a big road, and I have to tell you first that I'm not good at multitasking. So I was turning right while looking at Google Maps, and I did not notice a car that was coming from the opposite direction. Long story short, the car I was in was quite damaged, but luckily no one was hurt. But still, it was still a scary experience for me. So I wish it did not happen. It does not happen again. But looking back, I was basically distracted because I was looking at two different views, my phone for navigation and the road, which is for driving, obviously. So the question here is, what if so that we can drive and navigate while looking at the same way? We believe that mixed reality can solve this.
Okay, I will keep going. So we divided our talk into 4 parts. First, a general introduction, and then use cases for mobility experience. Then we will talk about specific process, team structure, and tools used in the XR industry today, and then some of our key takeaways and best practices. So let's start. What is exactly mixed reality? In 1994, Paul McGraham introduced the reality-virtuality continuum. And we can see in this spectrum, on the one end represents reality, and on the other end represents the virtual world. In between, we have augmented reality, which means placing digital content in the physical world, and augmented virtuality, which means augmenting the digital world with physical object, for example, using haptic gloves. And he defined it that mixed reality is a mixture of real world and the virtual world. For many years, only AR and VR are used in the industry. That is not until 2015 when Microsoft introduced HoloLens, and they started to use the word mixed reality. And that first caused some confusion in the industry, but eventually many companies adopted this word. And 2 years after that, Qualcomm started to use the word extended reality, and they predicted that over time, all this technology will converge into one experience under the term extended reality. And nowadays, extended reality is used as an umbrella term that represents AR, MR, and VR altogether. Here we can see an overview of the XR industry today, where augmented reality mostly represents smartphone-based AR apps, and mixed reality represents a more advanced version of augmented reality, mostly used AR glasses, using technology as gesture control or eye tracking, and virtual reality represents a total digital immersion. Over to Richard.
The technology that shapes mixed reality. We'll take a look at an example, check some in a way that is created by Microsoft. It's kind of like a representation or representative of popular device for mixed reality. So with this, the guy in the picture is able to control a digital red chair using his hands, and he can see it through the lens that is on the head device attached on his head. And the slide here shows more specifications and details about the device, but the point here is the device is a combination of many different technologies, so some of these might be familiar for you. So to summarize, devices can still be considered as computer devices. So similar to robots and smartphones, they can be broken down into 3 different categories, starting from input, where similar to robots, it has many sensors to perceive its surroundings, and the information the sensor goes through a complex computation to be converted into something that humans can perceive, such as images like holograms, sounds, haptic feedbacks, and such. Oh, it's me. So what makes mixed reality so good, and why do we want to use it? We're going to highlight 3 things here, but actually there might be a bit more, but which you can read in the documentation, which we will share after the session. So the first point here is about having more flexibility in human interaction. So in smartphones, usually swiping, dragging, and taps are usually the main way to interact. But for mixed reality, we have hand gestures, facial recognition, which is more physically intuitive and flexible to use. The second point is about the 3-dimensionality of the UI, which here as if it's realistically far or close to us. We can make use of this to information prioritization or anticipation. The third point being that is about being aware of the environment and to only show the UI when it is really necessary. So here I would like to tell about what to keep in mind when we are creating good mixed reality interactions or experiences. Here we will also highlight 3 points. The first one is to make sure that our content follows widely used interaction guidelines, or so that the interaction itself is intuitive to use, so that the users do not have to relearn or micro interactions or UI placements when they are trying your product. The second point is to identify cases where mixed reality can be meaningful to use or only mixed reality can solve. And we will help you by showing some examples in the next chapter here. And the third point being to have a good display technology. So for example, to have a high resolution visual content, or to make sure that the digital object appears stable or anchored in the digital world.
Thank you, Richard. So I will talk about why does mixed reality matter for mobility industry. According to a survey conducted on XR industry experts, there are 3 industries are expected to be the most disrupted by XR technology, and automotive industry is one of them. Another study suggests that 45% of the growth in automotive XR market will originate from Europe, with UK and Germany as the key market. And the same study also projects that the XR market size global overall will grow almost 10 times in the following years, by 2028, reaching $252 billion. So what does the future look like for mixed reality in mobilities? This year, despite the pandemic disruptions, we already see major collaborations between mobility and XR companies, and also major investment for automotive companies in XR solutions and metaverse technologies. By 2025, the global demand for automotive XR solution will hit 673 billion, with a compound annual growth rate of 175%. By 2030, we're expecting 10% of the market adoption, with autonomous car with improved head-up display and XR solution integrated. By 2040, 30% of the car will be equipped by XR technology and connected to the smart city infrastructure. That means more than 75 million cars just in the EU alone. Next, let's talk about the use cases. Over to Richard.
Thank you. Here we will take a look at some examples of this technology in the field of mobility. Here we prepared 5 examples, interesting ones that we think will be familiar for people. And we have also more in the documentations which will be shared later after session. So application and mobility cover several areas based on the key players and also the purpose. Here we want to focus on mobility experience, which mainly targets drivers and passengers because we believe it has a big potential. So here is the first case, which is basically the AR version of Google Maps. So here we have directional arrows overlaid on the street, and we have also the map appearing on the same screen. This way, the user will have a better sense of direction compared to using only screen. So the second use case is basically replacing the need to read thick manual books, because the AR here will display inside the car components that the user will be interested in, and we can directly access that car component through the AR, and it will immediately show the information that we need. The third use case, basically turning a simple car side window into a mixed reality touchscreen display. Here, passengers can enjoy infotainment based on the view that is outside. And it can benefit, for example, families, because it can keep the younger passengers entertained, and the drivers, usually the parents, can be less distracted. The third use case here is in semi-autonomous driving. So at some point in the future, cars can auto-drive, but they still need human intervention for some cases. So here, mixed reality can teach or warm up the driver who were taking their eyes away from the road because either they're reading or watching movies, so that they can take over after. The fifth use case is about the metaverse. Here, the metaverse is basically a future where the digital world is a bigger part of our lives. We believe that mixed reality will become a big part that connects the mobility with metaverse. And the use cases so far, we can consider them as part of the metaverse, because it will change the way we travel or the way we commute, and it will create a new mobility experience. So what I like you guys to take away from this chapter is that not only that mixed reality enhances the main factors of mobility, but mixed mobility also has some subcategories such as education and entertainment, and mixed reality can enhance the experience of those as well. Over to you, Bose.
Thank you, Richard. So next, let's talk about some specific process, team structure, and tools used today for XR project development. First, at STAR, we apply human-centered design approach, and we believe that an end-to-end XR workflow is a combination of software development and game development. That means not just applying a 3D workflow into the process, but also placing iteration in the center of the entire workflow, with designer working closely with engineers. Of course, we have to also consider the industry-specific needs, in this case, the mobility industry, and the workflow can vary depending on the projects. Here we have some core team construct for the initial prototyping team. We have 3 roles: XR designers, 3D artists, and XR engineers. We have listed some of the key tech stack and competence for each roles. And basically, they're all generalists with one focus area. For example, for XR designers, apart from design, research, UX, UI, it's also important to understand prototyping, 3D creation. For 3D artists or 3D generalists, apart from modeling and texturing, it's also important to understand animation, rigging, and Blender, as well as 3D optimization for different game engines. And for XR engineers, it's important to have knowledge of back-end, front-end, SDK platforms, and also protocols. Depending on the project, sometimes other roles were needed. For example, delivery architect, project manager, Q&A, sound designer, and more. Here we have a snapshot of some of the software used today for XR creations. We can group them into 4 different categories: design softwares, 3D softwares, game engine or platform, and SDKs and APIs. One thing is important to know is that the outlook of software is constantly evolving with new possibilities emerging every month almost. So it's important that we keep updated in this. Next, I will talk about some of the best practices for working XR projects that we have gathered. The first one is to be a generalist in a specialized world. That means being a generalist with one focus area. The reason for this is very simple, because nowadays the landscape of XR is changing rapidly. We have a lot of new hardware and software releases every year. A generalist has the advantage to adapt to the changes rapidly. And whereas specialists, it's harder for this to happen. And also for generalists, it's easier to facilitate collaboration between different disciplines. Speaking of collaboration, which brings me to the second point, collaboration and communications. So there's no one man show in any complex technological field. It's important to set up a collaborative work environment. Many of the time, communication are more important than processes and workflows, which is why we see XR companies are pairing up with specific industries. For example, BMW and NVIDIA are working on the digital twin assembly line for automotives, as well as the most recent Neo and Unreal collaborations. The next one is to use XR only if it's the best way to tell the story. So XR unlock a very powerful new layer of digital content, which is previously not possible in 2D screens. However, not everything is right for AR and VR. That's because the technology is still at an early stage, and sometimes other media are better solution for your project. So we need to consider all the pros and cons. And this is to make sure that our solution is not just a tech gimmick. The next one is to focus on creating fluid and intuitive interactions. Interaction is one of the most important factors in XR. That's because there is no standardization yet. And users often don't know how to interact with digital content in a 3D space. And we have to design them as intuitively as possible, because right now some different software and different hardware are using different interactions. Some are using hand gestures, others are using controllers. So we need to collectively find the best techniques for XR media. The next one is to rethink the balance between digital and physical. This one is more specific to augmented reality, because in augmented reality, usually the physical world is the central part of the story, and the digital content should assist the experiences. So we don't have to fill the screen with effects and noises. This is also why we think AR and VR has very different use cases. Last but not least is the hybrid solution. This is where usually groundbreaking innovation happens. Combining XR with other technologies should always be considered by working with experts in those fields. For example, with AI, machine learning, IoT, blockchain, and robotic. So overlaying different technology can be fairly complex, but it also offers the highest rewards. One example is RTFKT, a New York-based startup, which they are a company that sells augmented reality shoes, which are also NFT collectibles. They are among the first company that combine AR technology with NFT, which gives them a huge success, becoming one of the biggest success story of the metaverse last year. Another exciting example is NXRT, which we will hear more about from Lucas later. Of course, best practices and takeaways are always evolving in the XR world, and we hope our high-level key takeaways can help you for your next XR project. Thank you, then that's our presentation.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, the key takeaways is definitely something that we will look at in our next MR, XR, VR, MR project. So thank you, Bose and Richard. Yep, if you have paid attention, I've borrowed this visual from our second key takeaway, which was about collaboration and communication. And I would very much like to extend the invitation to all of you who are participating in this webinar to post your questions in the Q&A section. And we would be happy to provide some A's for your Q's if you have any. But no questions, no open questions so far. Yeah. There's one. Are there any movements to standardize this industry so people don't have to train on every device? Maybe that's a question you can answer, Bose. It's a question about standardization.
Yes, I think there are always like big players, and I think we're moving slowly towards that. And if you try Oculus Quest, they have different gamings. In XR, in VR, usually controller is very common, and by each application, you can feel like the standardization is getting better. The interaction, it's easier and easier to use. So definitely we are moving towards that direction.
Cool. Thank you for answering that. And there is another one. What do I need to start to build something in VR? What kind of hardware do I need? And Bose, I heard you taking a breath, so I guess you're about to answer the question. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So for VR, I suggest start prototyping with Meta Quest because it's very cheap and it's one of the most common headset out there in the market. And for example, there are also a lot of free courses online and resources. Yeah, for example, Unity Learn or Unreal Learning Library. Unreal is very cool. And also YouTube has a lot of resource. Yeah.
Super.
Yeah, I can actually add a little bit more into that. So yes, Bose mentioned about MetaQuest, which is a head, like the head device where you put to see, experience the VR. But basically, as long as you have a PC, you can definitely try Unity and Unreal, which is basically like the game creation application, and you can try basically creating game. And although you will see and test it in the monitor, it's still technically like a way to test and build with VR.
Yes.
Super. And we are close to starting with Luca's session, but there's one more. 2040 seems rather late for adoption in an automotive product. And is it because of regulation, safety, or user adoption? Or what led us to this prediction? Maybe I can point the questions toward you, Bose.
Yeah, I think this adoptions is, I think it's because we already have a lot of car in the market. And I think actually this prediction is pretty bold with 75 million cars in EU alone. So there are different solutions that can be provided, but 2040 is a long time for now. So we still don't know. But however, there are a lot of innovation happening in mobility, and I believe, yeah, it will. I don't know, Mana, do you think it's a bold prediction?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with bold predictions. But I think when we compiled this, Thibaut, you had the question, so thank you. When we compiled this, Thibaut, we also had in mind the slow, adoption when it comes to product replacement. So obviously a lot of new cars will have this technology. Having said that, there's a lot of, quote unquote, old cars on the road, and it's just going to take some time. So that was how we came to that conclusion. Yeah, thank you. And thank you for the questions. Please also keep in mind that you can post questions also during the next talk, which Lucas Stranger will provide. And with that, Lucas, over to you, and feel free to share your screen. We can see your screen, but it still shows the Zoom window, so you have to change to your presentation.
Yeah, hello guys. Can you hear me so far?
We can hear you just fine.
Perfect.
And we see the full screen presentation. So over to you, Lucas.
Thank you guys. Thank you. Very interesting talk so far. Yeah, I think, well, basically NXRT. My name is Lucas. I'm running the company. I'm co-founded it 2019. And I think today I will probably talk about a specific use case, especially in the automotive industry. With us, it didn't took until 2040, or will take until 2040. We already established it, but that's probably dependent on different use cases. So today my topic is mixed reality test drives for a new and safe customer journey. So basically we're talking about dealership experience for customers. And with NXRT, we figured out one huge challenge for sales executives and car buyers nowadays. And this huge challenge is the increasing automation of vehicles. Combined with the lack of presentation options for new vehicle functions such as ADAS, which basically means advanced driver assistance systems, which means braking assist or adaptive cruise control, leads finally to a huge frustration for sales executives and vehicle buyers. Why that? Well, because through the increasing automation, people just don't get it, what the car is capable of or what not. So the problem comes because when you enter a showroom, right, the typical story buying the shopping experience of buying a car is you do some research at home, go to a dealership, want to test drive a car, talk to the sales rep. The sales rep might explain something about like the range or the battery charging when it's an EV, electric vehicle, or the horsepower, but normally they don't have any clue about driver assistance systems and what especially a modern car is capable of. So this is exactly where NXRT jumps in basically and what we want to solve with our solution. So what we have done is basically we created technology, software and hardware to kind of revolutionize the customer journey process at all with providing basically mixed reality test drive. So what does it mean? We basically use a real car as a simulator and transfer it within minutes into a showcasing device. We can do it with any car on this planet. We already did it with some trucks or tractor, so basically farmer vehicles, which was very nice, but has nothing to do with the use case today. Anyway, so how does it function? We developed our own hardware, which means a driving hardware platform equipped with special sensors. So we basically have a steering sensor. You see it here. I think you see my cursor as well. You drive the car on it. And when you steer the real car, it basically allows you to steer it because of the turntables. And those turntables are equipped with special sensors, which transfer in real time and the steering input into the simulation. We have also a PC system under the car, which is very important, especially for dealerships and owners of dealerships, because you really want to focus on the car rather than on some fancy technology or some PC system running next to it, right? That's highly important. So we have the steering sensor, and then we have two sensors at the acceleration and brake pedals, basically, to enable the driver to really be in full control of the whole experience. But I will talk about this in a second. Last but not least, the most important feature of our technology beyond the software, obviously, is our own mixed reality technology. You see it here. So which basically attached a standard micro camera to a VR headset. We can do this with any headset on this planet, which is nice because different customers have different requirements. And on the right-hand side, you basically see the driver's view. So what we managed to do is we show through the camera vision the real world, the real car interiors. You can really interact with the car, with the HMI, with the computer, but still get displayed a virtual environment within the windshield. So this is by a special algorithm who detects winches and just replaces it basically. So the benefit here is, and also the kind of, which solves a huge problem VR has, although I'm a very big VR fan, but VR isolates people, right? They feel like weird being in there because people might stand next to them and maybe chat about them or either steer at them. And with mixed reality, you have the power to still be in kind of control what happens next to you. So What about the simulation experience itself? We have basically 3 different levels. The first level is the introduction level. So the driver gets used to driving in mixed reality, which means he steps into the car, he puts on the VR headset. Normally it's done by the sales executive who supports him in the dealership. Then you really have a kind of voice control who teaches you, yes, you really can steer the car. Yes, you really can push the acceleration or brake pedals. You're in full control during the whole journey. Then we have in the middle, you see the test drive itself, which basically have different assistance systems. For example, the ACC you can see here in the below picture. It's like a car is driving in front of you, and your car is basically reacting to the movements of the car, like speeding or braking whenever the car in front of you does. And last but not least, the explanation hologram. So because we figured out that it's very challenging for customers to steer the car in mixed reality while getting technical features explained. So we kind of separated it, right? So you have fun at first and understand the whole functionality of the assistance system. And by the end of the experience, you get displayed a hologram. It's kind of augmented reality feature, I would like to call it. You can see it here, right, on the right-hand side. It's still like you see the virtual world outside and the car basically displayed in the windshield. You still see the real car interior, but on top you get an augmented reality hologram explaining you different technologies like range, or how does the ACC from like the really deep technology from the car really works, because this is something you just don't get when driving and listening to it. So I'm not multifunctional or multitasking, sorry. So I think nobody is, to be very honest. I brought a video with me, so
experience the full potential of any car. Feel the fine interior. Experience reality.
If the danger of a collision is detected, the brake assistant takes additional measures to protect the passengers.
Without ever leaving the car dealership. If you want to sell future cars, you need to use future technology. XQ Avatar, the world's first mixed reality test drive solution.
Cool. So you already kind of saw one of our first customer who is already using it is Porsche. I use it in the middle here. It's we're gonna use the Taycan, which is a very nice car. Yeah, and the kind of power of our technology is like you can scale it across all vehicle types on this planet. So really can do it with any vehicle, because there's also a kind of a question, right? Can I provide some experience or some safe images, or to be safe on the road just in one car, or is it kind of attached to just one model? No, it's not. So we basically can do it with any car on this planet. We have a software based on Unity to easily create different driving scenarios and then just adjust the different driving assistance systems to the car, to the vehicle. We can change the steering angle very easily, the power of the car. So everything is very flexible. Just if you might ask yourself if this kind of needs to stick to just one car or one experience. No, it doesn't. Well, we also need, as we are a company, an economic added value, right? So first of all, we figured out, we didn't start with having kind of the safety and comfort as a focus topic, but during the first pilots in dealerships, we figured out that it was so much or so important for customers and also for the sales executives that the safety and comfort increases over time. And the customers were very happy after kind of visiting the showroom, because they just felt like, okay, now I really got and understand what the car is capable of, and very important, what it isn't, right? So for example, when we have heavy rain, sensors kind of don't see anything. So basically the system breaks down. This is also something you can show your customer, right? So he's kind of ready when it happens. So 85% of our of people who are using it basically at dealership find it afterwards, they kind of feel much safer and much comfortable with the car they just buy or bought. We reduced the time for all parties involved during a sales process or during the customer journey, because normally what happens is you sit down as a sales rep with the customer, with the car buyer, and explain him or her over 20 to 30 minutes the different buttons of the vehicle and what it can and what it can't. And just imagine that, you know, we don't do this. Our explanation, or basically our experience, just take 10 minutes. We can reduce it to 5. It depends really on kind of the experience our customers want to have. And within 5 to 10 minutes, you get the whole functionality of the car by just experiencing it. So, and once we've learned, I think all from the power of VR is that it's much better to experience something than just to tell or read something. So that's again the power of the medium. So whether I'm highly excited about it. Yeah, last but not least, there needs to be a business case behind it. Obviously, again, that's what we do here, and we also increase the revenue through the sales of additional extras, because we figured out, and this might be very obviously, but it wasn't for years. I don't know, at least to some manufacturers. Things people don't understand, they don't buy. That's very logic, right? But they kind of still missed to explain new vehicle technology to the customers very easily. So this is why they spend a lot of money on R&D, but at the same time, they have troubles to sell those technologies because I don't buy anything I don't understand. So this is what we also can do, is increasing the revenue through additional access, because now car buyers understand what they should buy. Yeah, last but not least, we started with sales. We're now going to sales training, because one very interesting learning was also that most of the time it is also the sales executives who has challenges with understanding those different systems. I mean, he needs to sell 50 different cars when you're in a multi-brand dealership, for example, and you just can't kind of recognize everything, right? Especially when you just need to read it, or when you want to just read it. So that's why we figured out, like, once the sales executives also have the opportunity to experience those vehicle functions and technologies interactively in a safe environment by conducting a virtual or mixed reality test drive, they are much more comfortable to sell it, because like it's more easy to sell something I understand. So started with sales, now we're in the training. And what comes this year is we're going to vehicle engineering, because also very interesting that it's super important, to get an understanding how the assistance system, for example, feels when you develop it, right? It's again, very obviously, but what happens is that engineers like an idea, prototype it, maybe create it, maybe kind of implement it into like the car series. And then like customers figure out, well, that's not very interactive, right? So intuitive. I have no clue about it. I don't know why it behaves this way. So what engineers does now with our technology, they just pre-test their ideas by conducting a mixed reality test drive, basically in a kind of lab or setting. So yeah, that's basically kind of the 3 niches we've met with NXRT, which is quite successful so far. And that's it from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lucas. Yeah. 2 talks, 1 Q&A session, all in 45 minutes. And we now have time for 1 more Q&A session. And with that, let me share my screen again also. And there we go. And Lucas, your presentation triggered a lot of interest, and we have several questions. The first one, how long do you need to adjust the simulation experience to different brands? So obviously, there we go when it comes to the interest.
Yeah. So we are basically based on Unity, and we can also work with Unreal, but we're based on Unity. And what we did is we created a platform based on Unity and the kind of editor. You can just implement different driving environments, different vehicle physics, and really just adjust it to the brand experience. So normally it takes us 2 to 3 weeks to adjust or to create a whole experience, a whole new experience for a different vehicle type or brand. so very fast, as we already created our platform to do so.
Super, thank you. Moving on to the next one. You do all that without having the car API, question mark?
Yeah, good question. Yeah. We have two approaches here. So because it's very tough, that's a good question. So the person probably knows the struggle, because you hardly get access to the API after cars, right? Because like companies like Conti or Bosch, like tier ones or suppliers for the manufacturers, and they normally charge a lot of money to open access to, especially for third-party developers or companies. So what we did is we, again, created our own sensoric system. So that's why we use the turntables with a sensor in there to basically catch the steering sensor. And then two micro sensors and acceleration and brake pedals. We just attach them very easily. And like within minutes, we can transfer those, this way the car to a simulator. So that's the first kind of option we have, like just using external sensors. And the second is going via the OBD2 access point, basically into the car, reading the CAN station, CAN bus, basically. But yeah, then we need the CAN protocols, obviously, but we're already working on this with several manufacturers. So yeah, I'm very excited because then we can play around with like strapping the belt when you brake, for example, because so far we don't have a physical action in there because the car stands still. But yeah, then we can trigger it with different kind of vibrations in the steering and stuff.
Thank
Long
you,
answer, sorry.
Well, it's also a technical question, so thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of straightforward questions. Who develops all this? Do you only provide the software? Question mark.
So once again, so we started with software development only. So 2014-15, we kind of co-developed Europe's first virtual reality driving school simulator. And then Mercedes asked us if we could use real cars as a simulator, and we said, why not, right? So then we started to develop the sensor system to do so. And today, I'm proud to say that 95% of all the technology just comes out of our own company, basically. Obviously not the headset, but again, also the mixed reality approach, like attaching the camera and writing algorithm to it. This is also designed and developed by NXRT. So yeah, we believe in a kind of, especially when it comes to selling a solution to automotive industry, you need probably to be like a one solution provider or kind of a provider for everything rather than just doing one software stack here and one software stack or hardware stack here. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Yeah, a reminder to the audience, if you have questions, just use the Q&A function to jot down your question. We have another one. And yeah, it's a question about customers. Lucas, I know that, the automotive industry is notorious when it comes to, confidentiality, etc. But the question is, what customers are already using this? Porsche, you mentioned. Mercedes, you mentioned in the answer now.
Yeah, but, I mean, I think it's out there. So we just launched with Hyundai in Prague with the Ioniq 5. This is something I can tell. And probably all auto brands, we work with in the way or the other. So yeah, it's really a kind of a very, very hot topic for those companies so far, because yeah, the pain is real, I would say. Starting from sales, going back to engineering. That's why we kind of have this roadmap I highlighted.
Great, thank you. Thank you. And that's all the questions we had so far. So I believe we can conclude a bit earlier. Thank you, everybody who joined us. If you have follow-up questions, if you want to know more about NXRT or what STAR is doing, what services we can provide, please contact us. Please also reach out to Lucas. You can request a demo on the website. So if you're interested, go ahead and do that. From us, from the star side, we will also make a recording of this webinar available. We are also very happy if you visit our website and download the full report. Richard many times hinted as a lot of more good stuff that we didn't have time to touch upon, but you will find it in the report, which will be available on our website. And with that, I believe we can conclude the session a bit earlier. Thank you very much for joining us. It's very late in Tokyo. Thank you, Richard, for staying with us. I don't know if it's too late to grab a drink, but I think Jose, the two of us, we're in the same office, so beer o'clock for us, and hopefully for some of the other attendants. I know there's lots of great events at the Munich Creative Business Week, so if you are in Munich, I hope you will be attending one of these other events of the MCBW, but thank you very much for joining ours this evening, or I know there's some people from the folks this morning. So thank you very much, and
thank you guys.
have a great rest of the day.
Guys.
Take care.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.